Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Well, students, this is Dr. Ajay Kumar Singh, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, BHU. And this is my 8th lecture, lecture number 8. And the topic which I am going to discuss, that is transnational crimes and human rights issues. So, in this lecture, I would like to highlight international conventions on transnational crimes, and firstly we will try to understand meaning of transnational crimes and what are those human rights which may affect due to this kind of crimes, and how far Security Council or United Nations General Assembly have been effective in combating this crime. So, let us understand transnational crimes. Dear students, you see the prefix used before crime is transnational, meaning thereby where crime which is committed by two or more than two countries by a different group. So, where different criminal groups are involved in committing crime and not a particular country is affected, that crime is committed by coordinated group, by criminal groups, and which cause effect not only affect the boundaries of a particular country, particular nation, but it also affect the entire world, or you can say it also affect two or more than two countries. So, that is why transnational word has been used before crime. Crime which is committed by a group within more than two countries, that is known as transnational crime. So, let us understand that what are those crimes which have been identified as transnational crime. So, you see, as per International Convention on Transnational Organized Crime, human trafficking, drug manufacturing, arms and weapons, trafficking of arms and weapons, means prostitutions, trafficking of illegal migrants. So, these are some transnational crimes which are not committed in a particular country, but this kind of crime is committed within two or more than two countries. So, you might be aware about the role of Pakistan and Afghanistan. These two countries, they have played important role in spreading these transnational crimes. Illicit manufacturing of arms and weapons in Afghanistan, and you all might be knowing that Taliban militant, they are indulged in this kind of activities, and terrorist and insurgency. Earlier their prime object of terrorist was to establish their ideology, their political ideology. But with the passage of time, terrorists, they also involved in spreading transnational crimes. So, you need to understand the difference between terrorist activities and transnational crimes. In terrorism, the prime object of terrorist activity is to establish political ideology in a particular country. So, they fight against the government just to destabilize the government and establish their ideology in particular country. But in transnational crime, the basic object of criminal or a group of criminals is to earn money. So, you will have to see the financial aspect and political ideology. In terrorist activities, in terrorism, political ideology is paramount concern of terrorist activities, terrorist group. On the other hand, in transnational crimes, the basic object of criminal group is to earn money, to get money by using illegal means. So, this is the basic difference between terrorist activities and transnational crimes. And many times you might have seen that different terrorist organization, they involve in spreading these transnational crimes. They involve in manufacturing illegal arms and weapons. They also involve in selling and purchasing illegal arms and weapons from one country to another country. They are also indulged in selling and purchasing of illegal migrants, refugees. So, these are certain areas where international community, particularly United Nations General Assembly, has played important role to put new standard before international community. For what? Just to combat this menace, just to tackle this international crime, transnational crime. So, with the help of this slide, I would like to highlight some special efforts which has been made by international organizations. So, firstly you will see transnational organized crime, that is coordinated across national borders, involving group or working in more than one country to plan, execute illegal business. For example, smuggling of migrants, smuggling of drugs, arms and weapons, trafficking of women and girls for prostitution purposes, narcotics drugs, smuggling of narcotics drug, that is very prominent in transnational crime. So, the first effort which was made by United Nations General Assembly in 1997, that is UNODC, UN Office, you just see UN Office on Drugs and Crime. Even briefly it is referred as UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, 1997. So, this office was established by United Nations General Assembly just to tackle, just to combat trafficking of drugs, crime prevention and criminal justice. This was the prime concern of this body, this agency. Trafficking of narcotics drug, and later on this office also intervene in terrorism and corruption, money laundering related problems. So, how this agency UNODC tried to bring these two important international agencies at a point, that is World Bank and IMF. I have just referred this World Bank and International Monetary Fund. So, how these agencies will play important role in combating transnational crime? You all might be aware about money laundering, hawala transaction, conversion of black money into white money. Hawala transaction is on rise, and you see this terrorists as well as criminals who were active in different countries, they also started converting black money into white money, and hawala transaction, hawala got a recognition in international law. So, United Nations General Assembly tried to curb that, tried to suppress the terrorists with the help of these two agencies, World Bank and IMF. How World Bank and IMF can play important role in curbing this menace, in curbing this problem? World Bank and International Monetary Fund IMF, they play important role in providing financial assistance to underdeveloped countries. So they can ask the government concerned, they can ask the country concerned that wherever terrorist activities will be found in your country, that country will not be provided financial assistance from this World Bank or IMF. So United Nations General Assembly try to put these two, World Bank and IMF, these two agencies, and convince them to initiate the proceeding of financial blockade against those countries where terrorist activities are prevailing or on rampant. So state sponsored terrorist activities, you might be aware about state sponsored terrorist activities, and Pakistan, Taliban, these two countries are involved in this state sponsored terrorism. So many of you might be knowing that militant of that country, Taliban, they are indulged in money laundering, they are also indulged in smuggling of drugs, narcotics drugs, and cocaine. They are also this is statistics data of international agencies that Taliban, you all might be knowing that opium is produced in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is considered as highly productive opium and you see they also militant of that country, they involved in smuggling of narcotics drugs. So it was decided by United Nations General Assembly that Pakistan and Afghanistan, both countries, should not be provided financial assistance from this World Bank and International Monetary Fund. So they started intervening, World Bank issued notice to these two countries that if these two countries would not be able to control terrorism in their countries, neither World Bank nor IMF will provide any kind of financial assistance to these two countries. So you see this how they can play important role. World Bank and International Monetary Fund can play important role in combating transnational crime. Third agency which is assigned to handle this situation, that is Interpol. So Interpol is also referred as international police, Interpol. So Interpol has to assist member states. This Interpol has to provide assistance to the country where offender has taken shelter or where offence is committed, transnational organized that crime is committed or offender has taken shelter. So with the help of this Interpol, offender might be arrested and might be handed over to the country concerned where his presence is required, trial may be conducted. You all might be knowing about Dawood Ibrahim. Dawood Ibrahim, he was involved in Bombay bomb blast and during 1993, and it is also known fact that Dawood Ibrahim, with the help of his guilty partners, had started smuggling of drugs, arms and weapons, narcotics drugs, NDPS. So though he could not be arrested by CBI or by our intelligence, but even though many guilty associates who were associated with Dawood Ibrahim, they have been arrested and prosecuted, convicted. So Interpol can also play important role. And now come to this third important step which United Nations General Assembly has taken in this regard. You see, you look at this United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. That convention was adopted by United Nations member states in the year of 2000 in Parma, Italy. This convention is also known as Parmo Convention. Because this convention, as you all might be knowing, that convention is multilateral agreement which is signed by member states just to implement the protocols, just to implement the objectives of that convention, that agreement. So, this is a kind of bilateral agreement, multilateral agreement. So, convention is multilateral agreement among the member states of United Nations organization. India too has signed this convention. India is also a member of this international convention, and in the year of 2000, multilateral agreement was signed by member states of United Nations organization to combat against transnational organized crime. In brief, I will refer it, you can also refer it TOC, transnational organized crime. So, it has three, I would like to highlight salient feature of this protocol. It has three protocols. It is the first globally binding instrument on TOC. It is also said that this convention is global leader, global fighter against transnational crime, and it has important three protocols. As you all might be knowing that protocols are body of rules which are binding upon member states who have given their consent to the convention, who have put their signature. So, that is agreement. Convention is multilateral agreement and member states are bound to follow that agreement, the content of the agreement. So, the first protocol here is the protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking, especially women, trafficking of women and children. It was adopted by United Nations General Assembly on 25th December 2003. It shall come into force on 25th December 2003. So, since then this protocol is prevailing among country of member states who. So, according to this protocol, all the member states are bound to have tough law, stringent law on this point. On what point? In order to prevent trafficking of women and children, all the member states will have to make special legislation so that trafficking of women and children can be prohibited, can be prevented. So, this is the purpose of this protocol. Second protocol is protocol against smuggling of migrants by land or sea. It came into force in 2004. So, you see this protocol, this agreement is specifically for prevention of smuggling of migrants by land or by sea. It has been observed that different criminal groups are involved in smuggling of illegal migrants because they are poor, and illegal migrants who knowingly or unknowingly cross the border of their countries, or they knowingly or unknowingly they breach the law of their country, or they might not be aware about the legal consequences of their act. So, illegal migrants are very prone for the criminals, and criminals take advantage of illegal migrants, and they compel them, criminals, they compel illegal migrants are compelled to do all these kind of illegal activities. So, in order to prevent smuggling of illegal migrants, this convention was adopted in 2004. Third important protocol is protocol against illicit manufacturing and trafficking of firearms. You see, different international organizations, criminal organization groups, they are involved in manufacturing of illegal arms and weapons. They are also involved, they are also indulged in trafficking of firearms. So, it was decided by United Nations General Assembly that this practice should also be prohibited, this practice should also be curbed by member states. So, for that purpose this UNO has adopted 3 protocols. How far these protocols have been effective to combat transnational organized, that may be a question of debate, but now see the role of international organizations, state party role in protection of TOC, transnational crime. So, Article 7 of this protocol, Article 7 talks about measures, procedures for global money laundering. State parties shall ensure that money laundering should be prohibited, and you see as a result of that every member state has passed special legislation on money laundering in order to prevent hawala transaction, in order to criminalize hawala transaction. Every member state has enacted. India too has passed Money Laundering Act 2002. So, our government, Indian Parliament in the year of 2002 enacted a special legislation on money laundering. It was also amended, Money Laundering Act was also amended in the year of 2005. Article 8 of this act talks about measure against corruption. By what means, by what method corruption may be reduced or mitigated, can be controlled. Article 16 talks about extradition of offenders. Now, let us understand this UN office, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. As I have mentioned this, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime pledge, it takes oath, pledge that it will work to educate people throughout the world about drugs abuse, and to bring them into action against illicit drug production and trafficking. So, it may be also considered as an effective method to educate the people across the globe, so that they can stand up against this kind of crime. So, by creating awareness among people, this kind of crime, transnational organized crime, may also be controlled. So, for that purpose United Nations General Assembly started this kind of campaign against transnational organized crime. Another important step which United Nations General Assembly has taken, that is, it was established in 19, as I said, 97, Office Drug and Control. The function of this office is to, you see, the first is to prevent illicit trafficking and abuse of drug, crime prevention. It will prevent transnational crime, smuggling of drugs, and third is international terrorism and corruption. Now, come to this role of IMF in prevention of transnational organized crime, TOC. Before I start role of IMF in prevention of transnational organized crime, I would like to highlight some important legislations which Indian Parliament has enacted in order to prevent transnational organized crime, terrorist activities, insurgency. Many of you might be aware about TADA, Terrorist Activities and Destructive Activities Act 1985. TADA was enacted by Indian Parliament in 1985. considering the menace of terrorist activities, our parliament enacted a very tough law pertaining to terrorist activities, that is known as TADA 1985. Before the commencement of that legislation, Indian Parliament in 1967 enacted a special legislation. The name of that legislation is the Unlawful Prevention Activities Act 1967. Briefly, that act is referred as UAPA, Unlawful Prevention Activities Act 1967. That act was enacted by our parliament, by Mrs. Indira Gandhi government, but that act was not adequate. So, in 1985 it was decided by our legislators to make a tough law on this point. So, TADA was enacted in 1985. Even this TADA became ineffective, inadequate to tackle the problem. So, in the year of 2002, POTA was enacted, Prevention of Terrorist Activities Act 2002. POTA was enacted. So, again POTA was also repealed by the parliament in the year of 2008. POTA was repealed by the parliament with the logic that even POTA was not adequate to tackle the problem. So, right now we are having one important legislation, that is UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. By that legislation, we are trying to prevent terrorist activities. So, that act was the act which was enacted by Indira Gandhi government in 1967. With slight modification, Parliament has made amendment in that statute. So, right now that act is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Amendment Act 2008 is in practice. That act is, by that statute, government is trying to prevent terrorist activities in our country. We will have to also consider the relevant factors which are responsible for cause of, which are important factor due to which criminal groups are involved in this kind of illegal activities. I am talking about cause of crime. If we look towards that aspect, what are the causes of crime? So, you can say that poverty, unemployment, weak legal framework and poor governance. Due to poor governance, due to poverty, due to unemployment, due to poor legal framework, terrorist, insurgent as well as criminal groups, they take shelter in that country where governance is very poor, where legal framework is very poor, law is very ineffective. Government is also, sometimes government is also supporting them, government is also providing financial support to the militant groups to just to achieve their objectives. States, many states are involved in state sponsored terrorism just to destabilize the government, their neighboring country, Pakistan and Afghanistan. As I have already pointed out, these two countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, they have been identified by US, United States of America, that these two countries have been indulged in promoting, spreading, propagating this transnational organized crime. You will have to understand this, how different militant groups, even in a particular country, they are supporting the government. If we talk about Pakistan and Afghanistan, you might be aware about the role of ISI, you might be aware about the Taliban militant group. They are supporting the government, and government is also supporting them. Government is also providing shelter to militant groups. So, the reason behind giving support to these militant groups is there is very weak legal framework and very poor governance. They only want to destabilize our government, means Indian government, so that due to political instability the growth rate of this country might be affected. Or so you see, they are creating so many problems at whatever they can do to destabilize the issue. But even if we will try to identify the role of different militant organizations, group working in a country, even we can also see in our country that ULFA, United Liberation Front of Assam, ULFA, that group is active in Assam, Nagaland, NCN, Manipur. So, earlier their motive was to establish their political ideology, but when Pakistan and Afghanistan started intervening in that domain, so they started giving financial assistance to these groups, so that they can create problem for Indian government and they will set their ideology in this country. So, ULFA, NCN, these groups are involved in northeast India, and even in Punjab you can say drugs trafficking, smuggling of drugs. But these states have their own legal framework. You might be knowing that Punjab government has established one specific unit for the prevention of transnational organized crime, that is known as Punjab Organized Crime Control Unit. Punjab Organized Crime Control Unit. So, that unit is specifically designed for prevention of smuggling of drugs in Punjab, so that smugglers who are indulged in smuggling illegal drugs and narcotics drugs in Punjab, they might be prosecuted and convicted. So, Punjab government has established its own investigating agency, separate investigating agency. Maharashtra government has also established its own investigating agency, that is known as Maharashtra Organized Crime Control Unit. So, Maharashtra government has already established its own organized crime control unit. So, that unit, that special police force has to work only for a specific thing, and that is to prevent organized crime, smuggling of drugs, smuggling of arms, smuggling of weapons, illegal manufacturing of drugs, illegal manufacturing of arms. So, different states have established their own organized crime control unit. Apart from these legal framework, you can also refer CBI, ED, IB, RAW. These are IB Intelligence Bureau, RAW. Government of India has its own intelligence bureau, intelligence mechanism. Government of India has also established a specific special unit to prevent this transnational crime. So, the point which I wanted to highlight, that how states can play important role in combating transnational organized crime. You see, in northern part of this country, northeast states, Manipur, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Nagaland, Assam, you might have seen that different militant organizations are even active today, even they are indulged in establishing their political ideology, and at the same time they are also involved in smuggling of drugs, smuggling of firearms, smuggling of illegal migrants. Now, the objective of militant groups, they have changed their objectives. Earlier they wanted to establish their political ideology in these states, but nowadays they are trying to destabilize this country. They are also trying to disturb the particular state, Manipur, Assam, Mizoram. So, and we are also having intelligence report. As per intelligence report, Pakistan, Afghanistan, they are providing financial assistance to these militants. They are providing arms and weapons to these militant groups. Though they have, they are also suffering from financial problem. The financial condition of Pakistan, Afghanistan is not very good. They cannot provide financial assistance, but for this particular purpose, they are providing financial assistance, as well as they are also providing arms and weapons to these militant groups, so that they can create disturbance in this country. Though government has adopted very tough measure against them, and we are trying to prevent that activities, but ultimately we will have to think that state where this kind of activities are going on, it is the duty of our legislator to take that state in confidence, and so that by providing special list, you might have seen that Parliament has enacted a special statute, a special law for these northeast states, particularly Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram, and army, paramilitary forces. They have got more liberty to arrest the person, to arrest the militants, to take whatever action they can take in the light of that statute, in order to prevent these activities. So, these are the area where we have to have effective and tough legislation, so that we can prevent organized crime. Many, as I said, many states have their own organized crime control unit, and because of that they have been able to handle this situation. You need to understand that police cannot control this kind of offences. So, many states, they have established separate cell to prevent this kind of crime. Apart from this, we will have to see 9/11 attack on World Trade Center in USA. After that incident, when that incident took place, 9/11 incident took place in WTC, World Trade Center in America, United Nations Security Council adopted a new policy for the member states. United Nations Security Council passed a resolution to teach lesson to Pakistan and Afghanistan, and you see, for the first time United Nations Security Council passed a resolution against Pakistan and Afghanistan, declaring a particular group as a terrorist group. So, and by that resolution, Security Council started taking action against those militant organizations who were involved in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in Gulf countries. And Pulwama attack, you all might be aware about Pulwama attack. Bombay bomb blast, where Ajmal Kasab, that militant, was also involved in that incident, Bombay bomb blast. So, you see, after considering these terrorist attack, this is state sponsored terrorist activities, and the facts are known to international community that which country is involved in this kind of activities. And apart from these references, now we will try to understand the role of international organization like Amnesty International, Interpol, United Nations Security Council, NATO. There are regional cooperation group who are also involved in combating this transnational organized crime. You all might be aware about cyber crime, fake currency, counterfeiting. These are the effect of globalization. Globalization has affected not only the economic growth of the country, but even the negative aspect of globalization is that which we can see today, that is cyber crime or fake currency. They can, you see, militant groups or criminal groups, they can easily create fake currency, they can make fake currency, counterfeiting coins and banking frauds. So, these are the outcome of globalization, and criminal groups are involved in this kind of activities. So, how this act can be, this kind of activities can be prevented? It can only be prevented due to coordinated effort. This kind of activities can only be protected with the help of international communities. So, United Nations General Assembly in the year of 2000 invited all the member states to consider the menace of terrorism, the menace of transnational organized crime. So, IMF and World Bank, these two important agencies, financial agencies, were directed by United Nations by United Nations General Assembly that these two agencies should take action against that country which is involved in spreading this kind of act, which is involved in propagating transnational organized crime. So, now I would like to discuss the role of IMF, how International Monetary Fund has played important role in combating transnational organized crime. So, this IMF, you see, policy anti money laundering, by enacting policy against money laundering, it would be helping combating financing of terrorism. In the year of 2000, IMF, you see, IMF were directed to make certain policies so that money laundering can be prevented. The issues regarding money laundering may be prevented. So, IMF has its own legal framework to control this kind of problem. Second important task which was assigned to IMF that is, you can see Financial Action Task Force, and this is known as FATF, Financial Action Task Force on Money Laundering. That is an intergovernmental body for what? To prepare worldwide policy for anti-money laundering, and this CFT, with the help of combating this with the help of World Bank. So, World Bank is also associated with IMF, and you all might be knowing that World Bank and IMF, these two international agencies, they have to provide financial assistance to poor countries for their infrastructural development. World Bank and IMF, they provide financial assistance to poor countries. They can impose restrictions on those countries wherever this kind of the cases of terrorism is reported. So, they can restrict their financial assistance. The third important policy which IMF has, financial blockade. You see, this IMF and World Bank, these two agencies can adopt financial blockade. This is a very good, this is an effective method in the hands of IMF and World Bank, financial blockade, and reduction of financial assistance to concerned country. This is another important. I have chosen only two important action which IMF and World Bank can take against the country concerned which is involved in state sponsored terrorism. This IMF and World Bank both can take action. They can reduce the financial assistance. They can also refuse to give financial assistance to the country, to that country which is involved in this state sponsored terrorism. So, either they can reduce or they can refuse to give money, financial assistance to the state, or they can impose financial blockade, that unless and until the country concerned tackle this problem, that country will not be provided financial assistance from World Bank, neither World Bank nor IMF. So, this financial blockade and this financial control might affect the growth of, or you can say the involvement of that state in spreading terrorist activities. So, it has been seen that these two important agencies, World Bank and IMF, they have played important role in combating transnational organized crime. So, because if you can understand that a country like Pakistan or Afghanistan, if country like this, if they will not be provided financial assistance from IMF and World Bank, they cannot survive, they cannot provide basic amenities, food to their people. As per World Bank report, the financial position of Pakistan, Afghanistan is not very good. So, you can say, and those countries, particularly Gulf countries which are involved in terrorist activities, the financial position as per World Bank report is not good. So, this can play, means this IMF can play important role, World Bank can also play important role in combating this kind of menace. So, this is all about transnational organized crime and role of United Nations and role of United Nations subsidiary organs, subsidiary agencies like Interpol and World Bank. These are subsidiary organs of the United Nations organization. If we talk about Indian context, we can conclude that Indian Parliament can play important role in combating transnational organized crime by making special law, by making tough law, and we have already made a very tough law on this point, that is Unlawful Prevention Activities Act 1967, National Security Act 1980. With the help of Gangster Act, you all might be knowing that. So, National Security Act 1980 and Unlawful Prevention Activities Act Amendment Act 2008, these two important legislation, and different states have their own special legislation with regard to terrorist activities. So, states are also empowered to make law for their own states. So, Maharashtra government has already enacted special legislation. Assam, Nagaland, Punjab government has also enacted special legislation on this point. So, though Indian Parliament has enacted universal legislation, that is National Security Act 1980, in addition to this, state governments are free to have special legislation. As a result of that, different states where terrorist activities are going on or criminals are involved in transnational organized crime. So, you will have make difference between this transnational organized crime and traditional crime. So, for traditional crime, our police system is sufficient, but so far as new crime like cyber crime, transnational organized crime, smuggling of drugs, so we need special kind of force. So, as I said, different states have enacted special legislation on this point. Okay. So, with the help of these international instrument, with the help of United Nations General Assembly, we can say that United Nations Security Council, United Nations General Assembly have played important role in prevention of transnational organized crime. India is also signatory member of that convention, multilateral convention agreement. So, India has also enacted special legislation on transnational organized crime. As I said, money laundering, our Indian Parliament has enacted special legislation on Money Laundering Act. Our Parliament has enacted special legislation for prevention of terrorist activities in northeast states, AFSA, Armed Force Special Act and National Security Act. So, these are few important legislation which you all need to remember, and with the help of these special legislations, our government is trying to curb this menace, our government is trying to prevent this crime. And people, you might have seen that many people they lost their lives in Jammu and Kashmir, many people they lost their life in Punjab where demand of Khalistan was in a picture, but even you see Punjab government and central government both have been able to crush that, suppress that movement. So, demand of Greater Nagaland, you see this kind of thing is not in picture nowadays. So, it is the political will of the government, it is the political will of particular country which can play important role in combating, in preventing this kind of crime. So, Indian government has been effective to combat this menace, to combat this problem. With this I would like to conclude my lecture, and I do believe that you all must have understood the meaning of transnational crimes, role played by United Nations General Assembly and Security Council, and our government, Parliament, particularly Parliament, With the help of special legislations, Indian government has been able to control this problem. So with this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. Perhaps the most popular literary genre after novel is the short story. Sharp, compact narratives whose charm lies not only in what is said but also in what remains unsaid. Today I'll be reading one of the shortest instances of a short story that I have ever encountered, and indeed the very charm of this particular story that I'm going to read out today lies in the way it abruptly ends. It is an ancient tale from Mesopotamia which has been retold by several authors, among whom the name of Somerset Maugham stands out. The adaptation that I'll be reading out is perhaps the closest to the one that Maugham wrote. The story is titled, in all of its adaptations almost, as Appointment in Samarra. Here is the story. A merchant in Baghdad once sent one of his servants to the market. The servant was supposed to buy provisions for the merchant, but when he returned, he came back empty-handed. Indeed, the servant had all gone white, and trembling with fear, he told his master that he had met death in the marketplace. When I entered the market, the servant said to his master, I was jostled by a woman, and when I turned to look at her, I saw that she was death. I am very scared, master, because death looked at me with a threatening gesture. Can you please lend me your horse so that I can fly away from Baghdad to the town of Samarra and thereby escape death? The master, being a good man, gave his servant his best horse and saw him gallop off to Samarra to escape death. Then the master himself went to the marketplace and confronted death. Why did you make a threatening gesture to my servant? Asked the master to death. And death replied, it was not a threatening gesture. Rather, it was a start of surprise. I was astonished to see your servant here today, because this evening I have an appointment with him in Samarra. See you in the next episode of Literary Snippet.